Well, hello and welcome, Pokemon fans. There are those who call me Bard Breaker, and it's time for something different, actually. This will be the first non-challenge video on the channel. Today we're actually going to be doing a tier list. I've never personally cared much for tier lists, but by gum, we're gonna make one anyway. Now, since this is Halloween, we're going to be putting all the ghost Pokemon on a tier list. That's right, all 55 of them. Using a highly scientific formula known only to myself and the long-deceased math wizard Pythagoras, our three-judge panel of distinguished guests, me, myself, and I, will with scientific precision derive a score from 1 through 5 for each Pokemon across 3 categories. First, I'll be judging the name. If someone told you, beware blank, how creepy or scary would it be? How much fear does the name alone conjure up? Then I'll be judging physical appearance. In other words, if you saw one coming towards you in a room, how scared or creeped would you be? And finally, I'll take a look at and grade the Pokedex entries for any spooktacular surprises that may lurk. I'll be selecting whichever entry I feel is the creepiest for judging purposes. In any event, afterwards, each Pokemon's total score will be noted, and at the end, we'll place all Pokemon into tiers. Sounds good? Well, before we begin, let me remind you that these are my opinions. There are many like them, but these are mine. Yours may look different, and that is okay. Now, without further ado, let's take a look at our ghostly pageant hopefuls. Go to the bathroom now, this is gonna be a long one. Going in Dex order, first up is number 92, Ghastly. While it's the first Gen 1 ghost type and maybe get some nostalgia points since all 3 of our judges, me, myself, and I, are Gen 1 snobs, honestly, it's a 2 in the name. Ghastly doesn't exactly strike fear, but it does still bring a small bit of intrigue. Appearance-wise, I'm gonna give it a 3. It definitely fits what I feel represents ghosts, but it isn't scary looking. From the Dex, I give it a 5 though, with its Ultra Moon Dex entry. Poisonous gas comprises 95% of its body. It's said that the remaining 5% is made up of the souls of those who died from the gas. Now that's pretty spooky. So Gassy starts us off with a score of 10, putting it on the board in the C tier. Next up is its evolution, number 93, Haunter. Haunter gets a solid 5 in the name. I mean, haunt is right there in the name, and I definitely don't want to go near anything haunted. Appearance-wise, we're going to give it a solid 5 too. It has a more sinister look than Ghastly, and it has disembodied hands that it can do whatever it wants with. That's pretty spooky. For Dex entries, I've chosen this passage from Crystal. It hides in the dark, planning to take the life of the next living thing that wanders by. And I rate Haunter at a solid 4 for the senseless, non-discriminatory violence. That gives Haunter a solid 14 total points, putting it nearly in the top, but alas, it's going to have to settle for the A tier. Moving along, up next is the final rung in the Ghastly evolutionary line, number 93, Gengar. Name-wise, I'm going to give it a 3. Gengar sounds just vaguely mystical enough that it earns some credit here. Appearance-wise though, I'm going to have to ding it down to 3. I can't put my finger on it, but I think the fact it has legs actually makes it more cuddly than it should. For Dex entry though, I've chosen the Ultra Moon again. Even your home isn't safe. Gengar will lurk in whatever dark corner of the room it can find and wait for its chance to catch its prey. Alright, I'm going to give that a 5. Can't lie, that's pretty creepy. With that, Gengar comes in at a solid 11 for the B tier. Now, I'm not going to count Mega Evolutions or Gigantamax forms for these tier lists because I view those to be artificially changing Pokemon beyond their natural forms. Basically like steroids or performance-enhancing drugs, if you will. Next up on the list is number 105, Marowak. Specifically, we're going to look at the Alolan form. From just a first impression of the name, I give it a 1. Nothing about it sounds scary at all. Appearance-wise, I give it another 1. Nothing about it screams ghost type to me at all. It's cool looking definitely, but not really scary. Finally on the Dex entry, another one from Ultra Moon. I'm kind of sensing a theme here. Someone go check on the writers for that game and make sure they're okay. When it beats opponents with its bone, the cursed flames spread to them. No amount of water will stop those flames from burning. And that sounds mystical, but not really creepy or scary. I'm going to give it a 2. That's going to put Alolan Marowak squarely at 4 points overall in the bottom of the barrel, F tier. Next up, we move to Johto with number 200, Mistrevus. Right away, it's a solid 4 on the name. The nickname just evokes a weary sense of caution with something so mysterious and mischievous as Mistrevus. Appearance-wise though, I'm going to give it a 3. While it definitely looks like a ghost, it looks too feminine and soft. It doesn't really look menacing. From the Dex, I'll give it a 3 with this entry from Pokemon Sun. It will use any means necessary to frighten people and absorb their life energy. It practices constantly to hone its skill in causing fear. With that, Mistrevus comes in with a clear 10. Good for a C. Next on our list is Corsa, in its Galarian form. Right away, it gets a 1 for the name. Again, it just doesn't creep or strike fear in my book. Appearance-wise, I'm going to give it a 3. It doesn't evoke a sense of fear or creepiness, but it does evoke a strong sense of sadness, and there are some ghosts who are known for just being depressing. Its Dex entry gets it a score of 3 as well, with this entry from Sword. Watch your step when wandering areas oceans once covered. What looks like a stone could be this Pokemon, and it will curse you if you kick it. Just sounds like a warning you'd see on a sign by the road, though. It's too straightforward. Galarian Corsa comes with a score of 7, narrowly giving it a D. Next up in the ghostly pageant is number 292. 352, Shadowrider, my boyfriend's favorite Pokemon, but that will not influence its score. For a name, it gets a 1. I'm sorry, that just doesn't evoke fear, creepiness, or any other horror emotion. Appearance-wise, it's actually adorable, but its halo makes it look like an angel rather than a ghost, which is essentially an entirely separate thing. Gonna give it another 1. For dex entry, I've chosen black and white, a discarded bug shell that came to life. Peering into the crack on its back is said to steal one's spirit. And with that entry, I give it a 2. Could be magic, could be supernatural powers. Stealing your spirit sounds kinda spooky, I guess, but just don't look in the hole on its back. Shadowrider gets a 4, putting it squarely in the bottom of the list with an F. Next up is Sable number 302, and in the name field, I'm going to give it a 1. Again, it just doesn't evoke a sense of haunting or cursing. It honestly sounds like something you'd find on a dessert cart. Appearance-wise, I'm going to give it a 2. It looks kind of spooky, but it's more of a goblin than a ghost. Dex-wise, I'm actually going to give it a 4 though, with this entry from Ruby. Sable lead quiet lives deep inside caverns. They are feared, however, because these Pokemon are thought to steal the spirits of people when their eyes burn with a sinister glow in the darkness. That's pretty spooky that you'd see soul-stealing eyes in the darkness of a pitch-black cave. That'll give Sable a total of 7 and a D. Next up is 353, Shuppet. For a name, I give it a 1. I just don't think I'd be scared if some crotchety old lady got in my face and said, "You must watch yourself, for there's a Shuppet blocking the trail ahead." Appearance-wise though, I go ahead and give it a 4. It definitely looks like a ghost, but it's also not overwhelmingly cute like Mistrevus. Definitely very ghost-like. But for a dex entry, I'm going to give it a 1. Its dex entry from Black and White 2 is the best it's got. It feeds on the dark emotions of sadness and hatred, which makes it grow steadily stronger. That's the best I could find, and honestly, it doesn't say it hurts people with those emotions, it just feeds on them. Shuppet gets a 6 and lands in the E tier. Following that act is number 354, Banette, its evolved form. And right away I'm going to award more points in the name and give it a 3. Banette sounds more menacing, I guess because it has Bane right in the name, but Banette just feels like there would be more to it than Shuppet. Appearance-wise, it actually looks completely different from Shuppet in my opinion, but I do like the sense of fear that zipper mouth projects with the rest of its appearance. I'm going to go ahead and keep it at a 4 for its appearance. Looking to the dex entry though, I'm going to give it a 5 from this Ultra Sun entry. It's a stuffed toy that was thrown away and became possessed, ever searching for the one who threw it away so it can exact its revenge. Now that's a good scary story entry right there, as if what happened with Lotso Huggin' Bear met Child's Play. Banette gets a 12 and slides comfortably into the B tier. Next up is number 355, Duskull. And yeah, it's got the name down alright, definitely evokes a sense of creepy fear, so it gets a 5 on the name. Appearance-wise, I'm going to give it a solid 4 too. It looks like something that would haunt or possess someone or something, but there's just enough I'm waiting for the bus look to keep it from getting a perfect 5. Looking into the dex records, I find the Heart Gold Soul Silver entry of, if it finds bad children who won't listen to their parents, it will spirit them away, or so it said. Now that's pretty forbearing, but overall not incredibly menacing. I'm going to give it a 2. That'll put Duskull at 11, also in the B tier. Next up is number 356, Dusklops. So I'm going to actually ding it down to 3 on the name, as we're taking a step away from the creepy motif if I had to say. That being said, I will give it a perfect 5 on physical appearance. It definitely looks spooky as crap when I look at it. It's a ghost with big grabby ghost hands. Definitely deserves its 5. Lastly, looking at the dex entry from Sapphire, we get Dusklop absorbs anything, however large the object may be. This Pokemon hypnotizes its foe by waving its hands in a macabre manner by bringing its single eye to bear. The hypnotized foe is made to do Dusklop's bidding. I'm going to give that a solid 4. Being hypnotized by a giant solitary eye and being forced to do its bidding, definitely pretty spoopy. Dusclops gets a solid 12, which also comfortably puts it in the B tier. Next up is number 425, Driftloom. And when considering the name, I have to give it a 1. Nothing about the name in and of itself makes me think ghost or demon or anything. Appearance-wise, I'm going to have to give it a 1 here too. It's just too cute to be scary or creepy. I mean, come on, it's got little hearts on its tassels for God's sakes. That being said, I'm going to take a look at its dex entry from Sun. Stories go that it grabs the hands of small children and drags them away to the afterlife. It dislikes heavy children. Holy crap, that first half is objectively creepy as crap. Now that second half is just mean. Sorry fat kids, you're not going to the afterlife today, find your own ride. In any case though, I'm going to give it a 5 on the dex entry, fat shaming aside. So Driftloom still comes in with a 7 down in the D tier. Number 426, Driftblim is next. It's the evolved form of Driftloom, and it still gets a 1 in the name. I'm still not getting any fear or creep factor here. Appearance-wise, I'm also still going to give it a 1. It's still a cute blimp, but nothing makes me think ghost. It doesn't get a lot of help from the dex either, with the spookiest about it being this entry from Sword. Some say this Pokemon is a collection of souls burdened with regrets, silently drifting through the dusk. Not really spooky, but more of a sad ghost than anything. I'll give it a 2. That'll give Driftblim a bottom of the barrel 4 for another F. Following that, our next entrant is number 429, Miss Maggious. so I'm going to go ahead and award 4 points here. Maggious definitely sounds like it could be a ghost haunting an abandoned castle or something similar. Appearance-wise, it's going to be another solid 4. It's definitely got more of a spooky factor than its pre-evolved form from earlier, even if it is heavily incorporating elements of a witch instead of a ghost. I'm going to go ahead and give it 3 points based on the dex entry though, which I found in Sun. It appears as if from nowhere, muttering incantations, placing curses, and giving people terrifying visions. Okay, yeah, that warrants a bit of fear, sure. So that'll put Maggious in at a solid 11 for another member of the B tier. Next up is number 442, Spiritomb. And I'm going to give it a solid 5 on the name. You have Spirit and Tomb, two terrifying things right there in the name. Definitely evokes a sense of dread if you told me, you must first pass by the Spiritomb to get through. On physical appearance, I'm going to give it a good 4. It definitely hits a lot of the elements, but it's almost too disjointed and busy looking at times the more you look at it. I can't give it a perfect appearance score. Where I really have to ding at though is on dex entries. Honestly, the best it can muster is this one from Platinum. Its constant mischief and misdeeds resulted in it being bound to an odd keystone by a mysterious spell. It's gonna get a 1 on the dex entry. If it's bound to a stone, it's not really a threat, and it seems like it was more of a problem in the past than it is now. Yeah, not gonna win any creepy factors here. Spiritomb still plays strong though with a strong total of 10 for a good C. Following Spiritomb is number 477, Dusknoir. So as for a name, I'm gonna honestly rate this one at a 2. Dusknoir is just evening and night together, so not much here. Appearance-wise though, I'm definitely giving it a perfect 5. This thing is totally right up the creepy and spooky alley. I mean, look at that. A cyclops eye, a spirit face on the body, long grabby arms while still having the wispy ghost form. This is great. What do we have in the dex though? Let's see what Shield has to say. With the mouth on its belly, Dusknoir swallows its target whole. The soul is the only thing being eaten. Dusknoir disgorges the body before departing. Okay, it just straight up eats you and spits your body out after sucking out your soul. Okay, yeah, it can get a 5. Something about being swallowed to have my soul stolen just to be spat back out as a lifeless corpse. That's gonna give Dusknoir a very solid 12 and a very solid B. Up next, we have number 478, Frostlass. Well, by name alone, I'm giving it a 1. That just doesn't evoke fear in my mind. Appearance-wise, it is kinda creepy looking the longer you stare at it, but it also starts to look like a sentient bowling pin rather than an icy ghost. Let's give it a 2. And as for the dex entry, well again, Sun brings us this gem. When it finds humans or Pokemon it likes, it freezes them and takes them to its chilly den, where they become decorations. Okay, yeah, that's pretty spooky. That gets a 5, definitely. That'll give Frostlass an overall 8 score, but it's still just good for a D. Pokemon number 479 is next, Rotom. As for the name, gotta give it a 1. Not doing anything for me here. Appearance-wise, that's also gonna be a 1. It just looks like a cute bolt of electricity. Not scary at all. Looking at the dex entries, we don't find much either. Diamond and Pearl offer us this. Its body is composed of plasma. It is known to infiltrate electronic devices and wreak havoc. Yeah, I mean, that gets a 1 too. I'm pretty sure that's the first bottom of the barrel 3 we've had in the F tier. Just avoid the washing machine and lawnmower and you'll be fine. Next up, I believe, is our first legendary, number 487, Giratina. And I'm going to immediately ding it down to 1 for the name. Giratina isn't awe-inspiring or fear-inducing. Try harder, Game Freak. Appearance-wise though, I'll give it a 3. I'd be inclined to give it a 4 for its origin form, but only a 2 for the altered form, so let's just meet in the middle with 3. It's kinda spooky, but not the scariest by any means. The dex entry doesn't give us a lot to work with either though. Heart Gold and Soul Silver do give us this one. This Pokemon is said to live in a world on the reverse side of ours, where common knowledge is distorted and strange. But that isn't super scary if I'm being honest. More intriguing than anything. I'll give it a 2. So that puts Giratina in with a final score of 6 and puts it into the E tier. Next up is number 562, Yamask, which honestly, until putting this list together, I honestly thought was named Yanmask for all these years. So for the name, I'm going to give it a 2. It's honestly not that spooky, but it is a little bit with the mask. Appearance-wise though, it's getting a 4. That's a pretty creepy appearance. What are those? Are they hands or floppy ears? Either way, that soulless, faceless mask it floats around with is pretty spooky. Looking at the dex entry, I'm going to give it a 4 from its main entry from Black. Each of them carries a mask that used to be its face when it was human. Sometimes they look at it and cry. Yeah, okay, that's pretty sad and depressing and creepy. So I'm going to give Yamask a score of 10, which gives it a C. Now I'm not going to bother with its Galarian form since its main form is already a ghost. You can yell at me about it if you want, but my distinguished judging panel of me, myself, and I voted 2 to 1 to go ahead and skip Galarian Yamask. Next up is number 563, Kogagrigas. I'm going to give it a 3 on the name. It's derived from coffin, so there's an element of spooky to it, but because it's such a pain in the binary to pronounce right, it loses some merit. Appearance-wise, I'm going to give it a 5. Yeah, if a coffin got up with a face and tried to grab me with spectral arms, I'd be scared too. Looking at the dex, I'm going to give it a 3 with this entry from Black and White too. Grave robbers who mistake them for real coffins and get too close end up trapped inside their bodies. It's creepy, but it's also still hard to find sympathy for grave robbers. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That'll give Kogagrigas an 11 for a B though. Next up we have number 592, Frillish. For the name, nah, it gets a 1. Not scary at all. I'm sorry. Appearance-wise, I do get a bit of a creep factor from the male form, but that's negated by the cuteness of the female form. So I'm gonna have to give it a 2, but it would have been a bit higher if the female form wasn't up there to drag it down with its cuteness. Looking into the dex lore, I arrive at a score of 3 from this Ultra Sun entry. It wraps its veil-like arms and legs around prey swimming by and drags them down to the depths of the ocean. That's fairly creepy, makes me definitely want to stay out of the water, although I already did that because of actual jellyfish. So that'll give Frillish a score of 3, which puts it in the E category. Moving on up the ladder, we have number 593, Jealousend. Again, I'm going to give it a 1 on the name, just not creeping or scaring me here. Appearance-wise, I'm going to give them a 1 as well. They're just too cute and cuddly looking. Even the male now just looks like if Mr. Monopoly were reincarnated as a jellyfish. Dex entries though, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4 with this one from Black. The fate of the ships and crew that wander into Jealousend's habitat. All sunken, all lost, all vanished. Yeah, that they are single-handedly basically the Bermuda Triangle in Pokemon form, that's gonna be pretty creepy. Jealousend gets a 6 and gives us back-to-back E tiers. Next up, we have number 607, Litwick. And as far as the name is concerned, I'm gonna give it a 2. Its name, though, is one of the most appropriate names for Pokemon. It's literally a lit wick on a candle. The name isn't that spooky or creepy in and of itself, though. Appearance-wise, it gets a 1. It's an absolutely adorable Pokemon, but not very scary. There's nothing really spooky or creepy about a candle. I have one going right now. It's a super cute little candle that reminds me of something like Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast. Maybe we could salvage some points from the Dex entries, though. Looking through, I'm going to have to go ahead and give it a 4 on this entry from Black. Litwick shines a light that absorbs the life energy of people and Pokemon, which become the fuel that it burns. It's using the life energy to power up its flame. Okay, that's something super cute, but still actually fairly dangerous. That'll give Litwick a score of 7 and bring it up to a D. Evolving up the ladder, we look at number 608, Lampant. I'm going to give its name a 3. It doesn't really increase or decrease it by a lot, but it is going to raise the spook factor just a little bit. Appearance-wise, I'm going to give it a 3. It's definitely still cute, but it's also getting a little creepier. Looking at the Dex entry, let's take this one from Shield. It lurks in cities pretending to be a lamp. Once it finds someone whose death is near, it will trail quietly after them. Alright, yeah, that gets a 5. Now I have to worry about our lamps following us, and if they do, I have to worry about when we're gonna die. That's creepy as all get out. Lampant comes in at a very solid 11 for the B tier. Next up is number 609, Chandelure, and the final evolutionary form of the previously scored Litwick. I'm still giving it a 3 on the name. It's possibly a bit spookier than before, but not by enough. Appearance-wise, I'm going to give it a 2. It honestly looks a little less creepy and is actually a bit more majestic looking if I have to be honest, but let's check the Dex. Black and White 2 give us this gem. The spirits burned up in its ominous flame lose their way and wander this world forever. And yeah, that's pretty creepy. That's a solid 4. That'll give Chandelure a total of 9, which puts it in the C tier. Climbing up the ladder to number 622, we run into Gaulet. I'm gonna give this Ghost Rock a 1 on the name. Not really spooky in my opinion. For there, I'm gonna give its appearance a 2. It has some minor spooky appearance elements, but it really looks more alien than anything ghostly. Looking into the Shield Dex, we get this Pokemon was created from clay. It received orders from its master many thousands of years ago and still follows them to this day. Again, sort of alien or culty, not really spooky. It gets a 1 on its Dex entry. That'll put Gaulet's total squarely at 4 and bring it to the bottom tier of F. Next up we have number 623, Golurk. I'll give it a 3 on the name. Golurk has lurk in the name, but something this big doesn't seem like it could lurk very well in my opinion. That being said, since it's that big, we're going to give it a 1 for the appearance. It just loses some of the spooky quality that it could have. Checking the Ultra Moon Dex entry, we have, when the seal on its chest is removed, it rages indiscriminately, turning the whole town around into a mountain of rubble. Yeah, not super scary, more of an anger management warning than anything. I'll give it a 2, so that'll put Golurk in at a 6 and another E entry. Next, we go all the way up the Dex to number 679, Honedge. And you know what? I'll give it a 3 for the name. Honedge just sounds like a spirit you'd expect in a long-forgotten armory or haunted battlefield. Appearance-wise, though, as much as I love this set of Pokemon, I'm going to give it a 3. The floating sword coming towards you in a room would probably creep you out, right? Or maybe you would just grab it and start stabbing with it. The Dex has a fair bit of trepidation to it too with this entry from Y. If anyone dares to grab its hilt, it wraps a blue cloth around that person's arm and drains its life energy completely. Yeah, I'd be kinda scared if I heard that in some old tavern. I'll give it a 3. That gives Honedge a solid 9 for a solid C. Next up is its evolutionary form number 680, Doublead. Doublead is basically just 2 Honedges, so not a lot's changed. I'll give it a 2 for the name since it's a bit less spirity than Honedge. Appearance-wise, again, it's just 2 Honedges, so I'm giving it a 3 on the appearance as well. From the Dex entries, though, it doesn't have a lot. This entry from Sword is about all we have to go on. Honedge evolves into twins. The 2 blades rub together to emit metallic sounds that unnerve opponents. If all we have is some mild unnerving, yeah, I'm giving it a 1. Not very spooky at all. Honedge gets a 7 and goes in the D tier. Finally, in this evolutionary chain, we arrive at number 681, Aegislash. From its name, I'm giving it a 3. It does sound a bit menacing for sure. I'll give it the extra point to 3. Appearance-wise, I'm going to also give it a 3. It's not really any creepier, just more cool looking. Dex-wise, we get this interesting piece of history from Sword. Its potent spectral powers allow it to manipulate others. It once used its powers to force people and Pokemon to build a kingdom to its liking. Now, massive mind control powers seem like it might be creepy, but I actually don't find that creepy or spooky. I find it more interesting that a Pokemon would want a kingdom of its own. I don't know, I'll give it a 3. So Aegislash comes up with a total of 9 for a C. Continuing the gauntlet, we have number 708, Phantump. I'm gonna give it a 4 on the name. Definitely got a spooky quality to that. Sounds like something you'd expect to be haunting the remains of a clear-cut forest. Appearance-wise, it's gonna get a 3. Got some spooky qualities for sure, and I think it looks a little too cute though to be overwhelmingly scary. And alright, let's check the dex. This one comes from Y. According to old tales, these Pokemon are stumps possessed by the spirits of children who died while lost in the forest. Okay then, yeah, that's definitely spooky. Lost dead children in the woods. Alright, Phantump, you can have a 5 for your dex score. That'll give it a total of 12 and a very solid B. Moving on to its evolved form, number 709, we have Trevenant. I'm going to give it a 4 on the name. It sounds intimidating. Sounds like something you might be warned about before venturing out alone in the dark. Yeah, you can have that 4. Appearance-wise, I'm going to give it a 5. That's a spooky-ass tree right there. Definitely deserving. Pokemon Sun's dex entry gives us this passage. This Pokemon is said to devour anyone daring to ravage the forest. To the creatures dwelling in the forest, it offers great kindness. Well, that sounds like a menacing version of the Lorax. I'll give it a 4. Devour does evoke senses of fear in its own right. That'll bring Trevenant up to a respectable 13 and only our second A-tier list Pokemon. Next on our list is number 710, Pumpkaboo. And on the name, I give it a 2. Boo just evokes images of kids trick-or-treating, and it's almost as if it's trying too hard with the name. There's something to be said for subtlety. As for appearance, I can't say it scares me or creeps me out all that much. I gotta give it a 2. The dex entry doesn't help it out that much either. Alpha Sapphire gives us this. It's said to carry wandering spirits to the place where they belong so they can move on. That's not super creepy. Basically, it's just like Sharon on the River Styx. It gets a 2. So Pumpkaboo comes in with 6 and lands in the E tier. Number 711, Gourgeist is next, and right away I love the name. I'm gonna give it a 4 because now we're moving into Poltergeist territory, and that name definitely sounds like something spooky you should stay away from. Appearance-wise though, it's really not spooky. Gonna give it a 2. If anything, it's cuter than Pumpkaboo. But the dex entry does have some implications though. Pokemon X tells us, singing in eerie voices, they wander town streets on the night of the new moon. Anyone who hears their song is cursed. Yeah, that's kinda creepy. Now we have to watch out or listen out for siren calls coming out of these gourds. I'll give it a 3. That brings the overall score up to 9 and good for a C. Out next we have number 720, Hoopa in its bound form. And meh, I give it a 1 for its name. Hoopa doesn't sound scary. If anything, it sounds like something Arnold Schwarzenegger would say with his accent. Get to the Hoopa! Appearance-wise, it's just weirdly spirity enough to be looking for a score of 3. It's not quite scary, but it has some overall stuff going for it. From the dex entry in Pokemon X, this troublemaker sends anything and everything to faraway places using its loop, which can warp space. Just avoid its magic loop and you'll be fine, giving it a 2. That'll bring Hoopa's overall score up to a weak 6 and a weak E. Up next we have number 724, Decidueye, and just by the name, I'm giving it a 1. Sounds more like a tree than a ghost. Try again, Game Freak. Appearance-wise, it's also a 1. This is clearly just a grassy bird. You know, like its 2 pre-evolutions. Why is this darn thing a ghost? No, you know what? I'm not even gonna give it a 1 on appearance. This one gets a 0. I'm exercising my powers to overrule the judging panel of me, myself, and I to give this one a 0. It's clearly not a ghost, yet has been given the ghost type. I do not get it. Maybe the dex will clear it up. Nope, the best we got is Shield's entry. In a 1/10 of a second, it can knock and fire an arrow quill, piercing an opponent's weak point before they notice what's happening. This gets a 1. I'm sorry, not sorry, but Decidueye does not belong on this list. Why is it a ghost type? Nothing about this thing is spooky, creepy, or remotely ghost-like. So Decidueye is going to end with a final score of 2, which is now so low that I have to make a new tier for it on the list. It gets in the F- tier. Let's take a look now at number 741, and oh boy, another ghost bird. Let's look at Oricorio. And fair warning, we're getting to the point of the list where these are Pokemon I've never actually played or heard on the show because I stopped watching the show years ago. So if I start mispronouncing these things, deal with it. And yeah, I'm going to give it a 2 on that name. Sounds vaguely possessing, I guess. Appearance-wise, it's another bird with virtually nothing ghost-like in appearance. At least you could argue that these colors are sort of vaguely Dia de los Muertos, but I guess no, I'm not buying it. Giving it a 1. Dex entry, however, it gets a 5. Check out this one from Moon. It summons the dead with its dreamy dancing. From their malice, it draws power with which to curse its enemies. Yeah, that's got some creepy elements to it. That's a redeeming quality which will bring the Sensu-style Oricorio up to 7, putting it in the D category. Moving up to 769, we have Sandygast. I'll give it a 3 for the name. Sounds like a beachy ghost alright, so we're gonna give it that. Next up, looking at the appearance, I'll also give it a 3. A sentient sandcastle slinking up to me might creep me out. Plus, it's clear how this Pokemon died. It has a shovel stabbed into its head. Let's check the dex now. Sword gives us this one. Grudges of the dead have possessed a mound of sand and become a Pokemon. Sandygast is fond of the shovel on its head. Aside from the fact that it likes the shovel that murdered it, first half of the dex is kind of spooky. I'll give it a 3. That gives Sandygast a solid 9 for a solid C. Next up is number 770, Palisand, and yeah, it's a 1 for the name. That doesn't sound scary. Appearance-wise, I'm giving it a 2. It's still a sentient sandcastle that has some creepy elements to it, but it actually looks more tame and less spooky in its evolved form. The shovel not being a stab wound sticking out of its head definitely helps relax the look. That being said though, Moon does give it a rather spooky entry. Buried beneath the castle are masses of dried up bones from those whose vitality it has drained. Alright, I'll give it a 5 on that one. That's some creepy Native American burial ground crap right there. Palisand gets a total of 8, but that's only good for a D. Going up to number 778, we have Mimikyu. I'll give it a 4 on the name. Mimikyu sounds like it would be something that would steal your soul. I'll definitely give it that 4. Appearance-wise, I'm gonna give it a 4. It definitely looks creepy, like it's gonna steal your soul for the longer you stare at it. Looking at the dex, holy cow. Look at this entry from Sun. Its actual appearance is unknown. A scholar who saw what was under the rag once was overwhelmed by terror and died from the shock. That's a spicy meatball for sure. Gonna give it another 4. That'll put Mimikyu squarely at 12, good for a solid B. Looking ahead to number 781, we have Delmise. I'll give it a 4 on that name. Delmise definitely conjures thoughts of demise, so I'll give it some good points on the name. Appearance-wise, I'll also give it a 4. If I saw a sentient anchor rising out of the water, I'd probably turn my boat around and get the hell out of there. Digging into the dex, I find this entry from Ultra Sun. It wraps its prey in green seaweed and sucks away their vitality. It only likes to go after big prey like Wailord. That's kinda spooky, right? But I guess as long as you aren't the size of a Wailord, you're probably okay. That's still a mighty big target though for this anchor to go for. Let's give it a 3. That'll put Delmise in at 11 for back-to-back Bs. Number 792, Lunala is next, and name-wise, I give it a 1. Appearance-wise, I'll give it a 2. It's got more design elements of a bat than a ghost. Wall of Illusion and Yu-Gi-Oh! Did this better. The dex entry for Moon, though, is a bit redeeming with this passage. Said to live in another world, this Pokemon devours light, drawing the moonless dark veil of night over the brightness of day. That's kinda spooky, the threat of eternal darkness. I'll give it a 3. That'll put Lunala in with 6 and an E tier. Even number 800, Necrozma, Dawnwing's form, is next. And side note, 8 I wish it was still just the original 150. But anyway, Necrozma, yeah, I'll give it a 3 on that name. It's got some good oomph to it, but it still isn't super spooky on its own. Appearance-wise, I give it a 2. It's just got too much going on, it's just too much to be scary though. Shield gives us some pretty universe-ending consequences though. When Necrozma launches onto Lunala, it becomes vicious, seeing enemies everywhere it looks. It will burn the world with lasers. Gotta say, I'm not in favor of the world burning down with lasers. Let's give it a 4. That'll give Dawnwing Necrozma a 9 and a C. Just up the way a bit, we have number 802, Marshadow. By name alone, I give it a 3. That has a nice spooky ambience to it. Appearance-wise though, it's gonna be a 2. Again, it's just too cuddly looking to be taken scary. Looking into the dex, Ultra Sun gives us this passage. It slips into the shadows of others and mimics their powers and movements. As it improves, it becomes stronger than those it's imitating. Yeah, okay, I'm not super spooked here, but something lurking in my shadow that eventually learns how to do everything I can do better, that's still fairly creepy. I'll give it a 3. That puts Marshadow at a total of 9 and a weak D. Moving on to 806, we have Blacephalon. For name, nah, I'm gonna give that a 1. I don't even know how to say that name or what it's supposed to be, let alone be scared by it. Appearance-wise, I don't know what to make of this thing. This is a Pokemon? This is what passes for Pokemon these days? That's a 1, not even close. Only 2 entries to choose from, so let's go with this Ultra Sun entry. It slithers towards people, then without warning it triggers the explosion of its own head. It's apparently one kind of Ultra Beast. I'll give you this, it slithers and then explodes its head by you. That's fairly spooky, right? Imagine if a snake did that. I'll give it a 3. Blacephalon gets a 5 and a weak E. Moving along to 854, we have Sinistea. I'll give it a 4 on the name, that's some pretty spoopy names. Sounds like, if nothing else, like something that might haunt a British bloke's kitchen. Oh my god, someone go check on the breath. Hurry. Appearance-wise though, nah, I'm gonna give it a 1. It's way too adorable to be taken creepily or scarily. It's just Chip from Beauty and the Beast. Checking the dexing, we find Shield's entry. It absorbs the life force of those who drink it. It waits patiently, but opportunities are fleeting. It tastes so bad that it gets spat out immediately. Having my life force absorbed by a beverage is spooky, but apparently most people don't let it happen because it tastes bad. I almost feel sorry for it now. It'll get a 2. That gives Sinistea a 7 and a D. Next up is 855, Poltegeist. Okay, I'm gonna give it a 4 on that name. Still sounds like something that would haunt the Bref's kitchen, but I'll go with it. Appearance-wise, it looks a little more gross than scary. Some purple monster is inside my teapot? No thank you. I don't know, Bref might still drink out of it though. I'll give it a 2. Dex-wise, let's see. Shield's entry gives us this. When angered, it launches tea from its body at the offender's mouth. The tea causes strong chills if swallowed. And if some chills are the worst it can do, no, not very scary. It gets a 1. That'll bring Polteageist total up to 7 for another D. Moving on up, we have 864 Cursula, and okay, it gets 5 for that name. Top marks for sure. What more is there to say? Appearance-wise though, I'm going to give it a 4 for the sad ghost archetype. It isn't really scary looking, but it definitely has that sad Ghost of Maiden's Peak vibe to it. Shield again gives us our dex entry for Judgment. Be cautious of the ectoplasmic body surrounding its soul. You'll become stiff as stone if you touch it. Not super spooky, it again serves as more of a warning than anything, something like you'd see on the door to Medusa's prison cell. I'll give it a 2. That brings Cursula up to 11 though, not bad, that'll put it in the B tier. Nearing the end we have 867 Runerigus. Nah, not gonna give it a lot on that name, I'll give it 2. Doesn't conjure up any creepy or scary feelings. Appearance-wise, the first time I saw this, I laughed. I'm not even remotely creeped out or scared by this at all, it gets a 1. It looks like it was drawn by a 3rd grader. It's rocks held together by a cassette tape ribbon. We get a decent entry though from the Shield dex. Never touch its shadow-like body or you'll be shown the horrific memories beyond the picture carved into it. Alright, it can have a 3 for that. So that'll give Runerigus a 6 and an E tier rating. Our last 3 are all in one evolutionary line, starting with 885 Dreepy. And just from the name, it sounds like it'd be one of the 7 dwarfs if you found them at a dollar store. Giving it a 1. Appearance-wise, no, it's just a cute little Drago doggo. 1. And yeah, it doesn't get much better from its dex entry. Sword offers us this. After being reborn as a ghost Pokemon, Dreepy wanders the areas it used to inhabit back when it was alive in prehistoric seas. It gets a 1. So Dreepy comes in with a legitimate 3 points. That's going to put it squarely in the F tier. Next up is 886 Dracloak. I'll give it a 2 for the name, it does have cloak in there, so it does evoke a bit of darkness wonderment, but I'm not scared. Appearance-wise, I'm still giving it a 1. It still doesn't look like a ghost. It looks like a Dreepy on top of a slightly bigger Dreepy. Giving it a 1. Dex-wise, the creepiest thing about it is that Shield tells us it has an unhealthy obsession with Dreepy. Without Dreepy to place on its head and care for, it gets so uneasy it'll try to substitute any Pokemon it finds for the missing Dreepy. That's a 1. Dracloak gets 4 and also goes to the F tier. And our final entry into this tier competition is number 887 Dragapult. Nope, that's definitely going to go back down to 1 for the name. Appearance-wise, it's still not very ghostly. It's a lizard shaped like a stealth bomber that shoots Dreepy missiles out of its head. Not scary at all. It does have that wispy tail though. You know what? I'll give it a 2. Lastly, looking at the dex entry, nope, nothing spooky here. Just more Dreepy drudgery. Apparently the Dreepy inside Dragapult's horns eagerly look forward to being launched out at Mach speeds. That gets a 1. So Dragapult gets 4, putting the entire evolutionary line into the F tier. And that would have been our final entry if Game Freak hadn't gone and done introduced more ghosts the day I was sitting down to record this tier list. So a last-minute competitor has arrived to our ghost competition. Let's look at number 897, Spectrier. I'll give it a 4 on the name. Definitely has a spooky, ghostly quality to it. Definitely ticks those boxes. For appearance, I'll give it a 3. It's got some nice spooky elements to it, but it's almost cute and cuddly. I'm not super sold on its color palette. It looks like something you'd find from My Little Pony. Pokedex entry-wise, let's see what Sword offers us. It probes its surroundings with all its senses save one. It doesn't use its sense of sight. Spectrier's kicks are said to separate soul from body. Meh, it gets a 2. That's not really spooky, but the thought of a horse kick that can do what the Ancient One from Doctor Strange can do does have some interesting implications to it. But again, more magical than spooky. That'll give Spectrier a total of 9 for a C rating. Now with that, some of you may want me to look at number 898, Shadowrider Clayrex, but I'll be frank, this one is hard for me to include because it's literally just 2 separate Pokemon being counted as one new Pokemon, and not in the cool way like Venustoise. The only thing that makes it a ghost Pokemon is the fact that it has a Spectrier in it from before. Nah, this is literally just one Pokemon sitting on top of another and them calling it a new Pokemon. If we're going to do that, we might as well make new Pokemon out of these, which by the way would clearly be called Squirtbat, Pidgeotto, and Buttersaur. And there you have it folks, that's our competition. We've now judged and tiered all the current existing ghost Pokemon and assigned them to their tiers as we went along, so let's go ahead and view the final tier list just to see where things stack up. Taking a final look at our tier list, we see there are actually no perfect ghost Pokemon. Nothing earned a perfect score. Our 2 highest rated ghost Pokemon are Haunter and Trevenant in the A tier. Nothing for the S tier though. Decidueye is our not so surprising last place finisher. But there you have it folks, that's our totally scientifically derived tier list of now all 55 ghost type Pokemon. Hope you enjoyed, thanks for watching. If you watched the entire thing, comment down below with your favorite Halloween candy. If you just skip to the end to see where everything plays, comment down below with your favorite Halloween movie. In any case guys, thanks again for watching. If you're attempting to trick or treat this year, be safe, wash your hands, all that jazz. And until next video guys, have fun and go catch 'em all.